Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar. We're excited to introduce expanded biosecurity resources to help defend your flock from the spread of disease. I'm Andy Schneider, known to most as the Chicken Whisperer. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Joanna Quinn, Dr. Denise Hurd, and Dr. Megan Nichols. Before we get started, we want to let you know that closed captions are available for this program. For anyone who wishes to view real-time streaming captions, type the URL that you see on this slide into your browser. You can use this link at any time during the program. Now, we'll take a few minutes to introduce ourselves. I'm Andy Schneider, Editor-in-Chief of Chicken Whisperer Magazine, National Spokesperson for the USDA APHIS Avian Health Program, author of The Chicken Whisperer's Guide to Keeping Chickens, and host of the Backyard Poultry with the Chicken Whisperer web radio show and podcast. Dr. Quinn, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Andy. I'm a veterinary medical officer working with USDA. My position is a poultry health specialist, and I work in District 1, which is located in the eastern United States. My educational background is in poultry and avian medicine. In my position, I serve as a resource on poultry health issues, working with state agriculture departments, the commercial poultry industry, and with small flock owners. My focus is on avian influenza and disease prevention through biosecurity. I'm happy to be with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn. Dr. Hurd, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Andy. I'm the Senior Coordinator for the National Poultry Improvement Plan, or NPIP, which is a cooperative federal, state, and industry program of the United States Department of Agriculture that works to control certain poultry diseases. We'll talk in greater detail about the NPIP during today's webinar. I'm a veterinary medical officer with the USDA, trained at the University of Georgia, and I work with growers and breeders all over the country to provide support and coordinate oversight for the NPIP certified facilities and to educate all growers on how we can use the NPIP biosecurity principles to keep all of our flocks healthy and safe.
Thank you, Dr. Hurd. Dr. Nichols, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Megan Nichols, and I am a public health veterinarian in the Division of Foodborne, Waterborne, and Environmental Diseases at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I currently work on multi-state outbreaks of Salmonella and E. coli that result from exposure to animals and pet products. Every year, CDC investigates outbreaks of Salmonella illnesses in people that are linked to backyard poultry. I'm happy to be here today to represent the CDC and to participate in the webinar. Back over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Our goal today is to provide information about keeping birds healthy for all flock owners, from individuals who raise chickens and other breeds in their backyards, to bird lovers who participate in shows and fairs, to commercial enterprises that raise the poultry and eggs that we consume. We'll cover practicing biosecurity and the spread of disease, an overview of the NPIP resources, as well as new resources from the USDA. And finally, we'll conclude with important information about protecting both human and avian health. If you have questions, please feel free to submit them by clicking the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen after the webinar. After the webinar, APHIS and CDC veterinarians will answer all questions, and they'll be posted along with a recording of this webinar on the APHIS website. Be sure to follow the campaign on Facebook and Twitter to find out when the recording is available. We'll share those online destinations at the end of the webinar. First, let's turn our attention to an update on biosecurity. Disease outbreaks among poultry are devastating. Protecting the health and safety of our nation's poultry must be a top priority for all flock owners. The U.S. poultry industry is one of the largest in the world and an important sector of our agricultural economy. If U.S. poultry are exposed to highly contagious diseases like highly pathogenic avian influenza and virulent Newcastle disease, the impact on our economy can be severe and even international trade can be impacted. It's important to know the ways disease can spread so you can take the proper steps to prevent it. Adding infected or diseased birds to a flock, adding birds that carry diseases or germs to a flock even when they appear healthy, exposure to wild animals, pet birds, and wild birds, contact with contaminated hair, shoes, and clothing, contact with contaminated objects, that is, items that carry germs, improper disposal of dead birds, and impure water such as surface drainage water. Some additional ways that disease can spread to your flock include exposure to rodents and insects, the use of contaminated materials such as feed bags, egg flats, crates, coops, trays, and water troughs, using contaminated vehicles such as trucks, motorcycles, wheelbarrows, through contaminated soil, feathers, and old litter or debris, and through contaminated equipment such as scales, knives, or countertops. That's why practicing biosecurity is crucial. Dr. Quinn, can you talk more about the importance of biosecurity practice?
Absolutely. Biosecurity essentially means protecting or safeguarding life. It involves using common sense practices to protect your poultry and birds from all types of disease agents, viruses, bacteria, funguses, or parasites, doing everything possible to protect your birds from infectious diseases like virulent Newcastle disease and avian influenza, preventing disease-causing germs from entering your premises, preventing disease-causing germs from leaving your premises and spreading to your neighbors. We saw how quickly disease spread and the impact it had on backyard and commercial poultry with the avian influenza outbreak in 2014 and 2015, and with the current virulent Newcastle disease outbreak in California. Implementing stronger biosecurity practices encompasses three main areas of focus. First, creating structural barriers and maintaining them. For example, keeping your chickens and coop within a fenced run. Second, instituting operating procedures and policies that reinforce good biosecurity. And third, ensuring that biosecurity is an everyday, every time effort. These are the fundamentals of biosecurity practice, what we've referred to in the past as the 6 simple steps. 1, keeping your distance. 2, keeping it clean. 3, not hauling disease home. 4, not borrowing disease from your neighbor. 5, knowing the signs of disease. And 6, reporting sick birds. Now we are expanding these simple steps to include more detailed guidance and training to ensure that all flocks, whether industry, backyard, or exhibition, are practicing with a common set of standards. The National Poultry Improvement Plan, known as the NPIP, has done this successfully for decades and offers important lessons that we all can use. Now I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Denise Hurd, who will tell you more about the NPIP.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn. The National Poultry Improvement Plan, known as NPIP, is a voluntary, cooperative federal state industry program established over 83 years ago aimed at improving poultry health throughout the country. The NPIP was originally established to eradicate a disease called Salmonella pylori, which was causing 80% mortality in baby chicks. Today, we have essentially eradicated Salmonella pylori in the commercial poultry industry. With success in eradicating pylori disease, the NPIP was extended to include testing, monitoring, and surveillance for additional poultry diseases that cause illness in poultry, such as avian mycoplasmas, avian influenza, and other types of salmonellas as well. The NPIP has 3 main objectives. First, the cooperation of the industry, state, and federal government is essential to improve poultry and poultry products throughout the country by promoting new diagnostic technology. Second, NPIP certification programs examine the health status of the commercial poultry industry, such as broilers, turkeys, and egg-laying birds, by monitoring their primary and multiplier breeding stocks. And finally, the NPIP establishes the standard operating procedures for sample collection, diagnostic tests being performed, and the laboratory protocols for conducting tests under the National Poultry Improvement Plan. The NPIP is extremely proud to be supported by so many poultry organizations and associations. You can see some of them listed here in this slide. The NPIP works with and represents all sectors of the poultry industry. No one is left out. Participation in the NPIP is voluntarily. However, we currently have all 50 United States voluntarily participating in the NPIP, as well as 1 U.S. territory, Puerto Rico. Within the states, we have different types of participants, such as the primary poultry breeders, commercial companies, independent flock owners and backyard bird owners, hatcheries, slaughter plants, game bird operations, poultry dealers, and 100 NPIP-approved laboratories that perform the testing for the NPIP program. The NPIP offers numerous benefits. Some of the most significant advantages to becoming an NPIP participant include being proactive in the protection and health of your flock through voluntary monitoring and testing, preventing vertically transmitted diseases from the hen to the chick, knowing that you have purchased your birds from NPIP certified flocks that have met very specific prevention conditions, enjoying the ability to move your flock across state lines without having to do additional salmonella and avian influenza testing, minimizing the risk of bringing salmonella-contaminated eggs into your home, having access to best management practices, and a big benefit is that you can receive up to 100% indemnification if your birds are destroyed due to avian influenza. A new addition to the NPIP that I would like to highlight is the NPIP Biosecurity Principles Program. This program contains the best management practices and principles that are designed to prevent the introduction and spread of any type of infectious disease. Large and small poultry operations can take these biosecurity principles and apply them by developing a site-specific plan for their operation. The 14th biosecurity principle includes an auditing tool for the large operations to ensure that their plans are designed appropriately to prevent the introduction and transmission of disease. And remember, what one owner does with their flocks can affect all flocks, even those at a distance. Dr. Quinn, can you take us through what this means for the future of biosecurity practices?
Thanks, Dr. Hurd. USDA has begun the full rollout of communicating the NPIP principles to all growers, beginning with guidance on 3 of the 14 principles. First, actions related to personnel, meaning anyone who comes in contact with your flocks. Second, biosecurity practices related to preventing disease resulting from contact with wild birds, rodents, and insects. And the third point USDA is providing guidance on for all growers relates to preventing the spread of disease through the use of vehicles. USDA will continue to provide guidance on additional principles through the year 2020. For commercial facilities, the NPIP principles require that your biosecurity program must include provisions and procedures for personal protective equipment, both for site-dedicated and non-farm personnel. Your practice should include documented procedures for all personnel who have had contact with your poultry. Andy, can you describe how this applies for backyard and exhibition growers?
Thanks, Dr. Quinn. It's important that you only allow people who are trained to care for your poultry to come in contact with your birds. This helps reduce the risk of disease transmission. Visitors should wear protective outer garments or disposable coveralls, boots, and hairnets when handling birds, and shower and/or change clothes when leaving the facility. If using a foot bath, be sure to remove all droppings, mud, and debris from boots and shoes using a long-handled scrub brush before stepping into the disinfectant foot bath. In addition to potentially spreading disease from farm to farm or bird to bird, you can also spread germs such as Salmonella that can impact human health. Wash with soap and water, which is always your first choice. If using a hand sanitizer, again, remove manure, feathers, and other materials because disinfectants will not penetrate organic matter or caked on dirt. Back to you, Dr. Quinn.
Thanks, Andy. The next NPIP principle that USDA is providing expanded guidance on relates to pests as disease carriers, specifically wild birds, rodents, and insects. For commercial growers, this principle requires having control measures in place to prevent contact with and to protect poultry from wild birds, including their feces and feathers. Your procedures should be reviewed during periods of heightened risk of disease transmission. As with every practice, all control programs should be documented. Andy, tell us how this aligns with practices for backyard growers.
It's important for backyard and exhibition growers to keep your poultry away from wild birds, including their feces and feathers. Do not touch dead birds you see in the wild. Keep the area clean and controlled from rodents and pests. Be aware when there are periods of higher risk, be extra vigilant. Dr. Quinn, back to you for the final principle.
Thanks, Andy. For commercial facilities, the biosecurity plan should include provisions for procedures for cleaning and disinfection of vehicles, as well as the restriction of equipment sharing. Commercial facilities should also define in their plans what the traffic pattern for vehicles will be as they move into and out of the facility. Andy, back to you.
Germs make great hitchhikers. If you've been near other birds or bird owners, or even to the feed store, clean and disinfect car and truck tires, poultry cages, and other equipment before going home. Again, make sure you hose off mud from tires and wheel wells before going home. Make sure you clean waterers, drinkers, and feeders regularly, and clean tools and equipment with disinfectant. Borrowing tools could lead to borrowing disease, so avoid sharing lawn and garden equipment, tools, or poultry supplies with your neighbors or other bird owners, because there could be viruses or bacteria that could cause your flock to become ill. If you do bring these items home, clean and disinfect them before they reach your property. And once used, be a good neighbor and clean and disinfect them before returning them. Some things, such as wood pallets and cardboard egg cartons, cannot be disinfected. The best advice is to never share wood or paper products. Now let's look at some new resources to aid you in your biosecurity practice. APHIS has launched an expanded Defend the Flock education program to provide the tools and resources you need to make sure that you are doing everything possible to keep your birds healthy and reduce the risk that an infectious disease will spread from your property to other flocks. Defend the Flock resources reflect the knowledge, insights, and experience of USDA veterinarians, professional owners and growers, scientists, and other experts about the practice of good biosecurity. Through the Defend the Flock program, APHIS is preparing all poultry owners, including backyard growers, to implement diligent biosecurity practices. This new outreach campaign updates the two previous education programs and brings into a single site and knowledge center for all the best practices for preventing the spread of infectious poultry diseases in both commercial and backyard poultry. The goal of the Defend the Flock effort is to reach everyone who works with or owns poultry to join together to protect the health of our nation's poultry flocks. Here you see some of the new materials that have been created, including helpful checklists. The program offers checklists and other tools, videos, webinars, and educational resources to help you keep your flock safe and healthy. All materials are available online 24/7 at the Defend the Flock Resource Center. We encourage you to follow and share Defend the Flock graphics and messages on Facebook and Twitter, where you'll continue to find up-to-date and up-to-minute news and information. I'd like to return the presentation now over to Dr. Nichols to take us through some of the new resources created by the CDC and talk about human and bird health.
Owning backyard poultry can be a great opportunity to learn more about where our food, such as eggs and meat, comes from. It's important to keep both your backyard flock and your family healthy if you own poultry. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about Salmonella. Salmonella is a germ that poultry can carry in their gut and still appear healthy and clean. However, this germ can cause people to get sick. CDC estimates that over 1 million people get sick with Salmonella each year. Live poultry can have Salmonella germs in their droppings and on their bodies, feet, feathers, beaks, even when they appear healthy and clean. The germs can get on cages, coops, feed and water dishes, hay, plants, soil, and anything else where the birds live and roam. These germs can also get on the hands, shoes, and clothes of people who handle or care for the birds. People who have contact with these items, like the coops or water dishes, in the area where the poultry live, can get sick without actually touching the birds. And at CDC, we call this indirect contact. Children younger than 5 years old, adults over the age of 65, and people with weakened immune systems, like pregnant women, may be more likely to develop serious illness from Salmonella infections. Since 2000, there have been 70 Salmonella outbreaks, which account for over 4,000 illnesses, over 800 hospitalizations, and 7 deaths. So we always recommend taking some special precautions to prevent illness. This includes always washing your hands with soap and water right after touching live poultry or anything in the area where they live and roam. Adults should always supervise hand washing by young children, and you can use hand sanitizer if soap and water are not readily available, but when you do have access to that soap and water, we recommend washing your hands. Another important thing to remember is that we don't want to let live poultry live inside the house, especially in areas where food or drink is served, stored, or even prepared. It's also important to set aside a pair of shoes to wear while taking care of poultry and keep these shoes outside of the house. Stay outdoors when you're cleaning any equipment or material that's used to raise or care for live poultry, such as cages or feed or water containers. And don't eat or drink in the area where birds live and roam. Another thing to remember is don't kiss your birds or snuggle them or touch them to your face or mouth. This is one way where people can pick up germs. Households with young children, older adults, or people with weakened immune systems need to carefully consider the risk of Salmonella infection before they purchase live poultry. So it's important to remember to choose the right animal for your family. Many people enjoy owning backyard poultry for fresh eggs, and so it's important to remember the 5 C's. Keep the coop clean. Cleaning the coop, floor, nests, and perches on a regular basis will also help to keep any eggs clean. Next, collect the eggs often. Eggs that spend a significant amount of time in the nest can become dirty or break, and any cracked eggs should be thrown away. You can clean eggs with fine sandpaper, a brush, or a cloth. You don't want to wash the eggs because colder water can actually pull bacteria into the inside of the egg. Cool eggs by refrigerating after collections, and then cook the eggs thoroughly because raw or undercooked eggs can contain Salmonella bacteria that can make you sick. If you're interested in more information about owning backyard poultry and how to keep your family and your flock healthy, there's additional information on the CDC website, including infographics that can be printed. Back over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. You can find a new home for the USDA APHIS Defend the Flock public education program at aphis.usda.gov/animal-health/defend the flock. Be sure to check out more helpful information on our social channels. If you're an educator involved with youth organizations or programs, or you're looking for training materials, we'd love to share our campaign with you. Contact us via social media or through the website. This presentation, along with answers to your questions, will be available for download from the Defend the Flock website in the next week or so. Be sure to follow Defend the Flock on Facebook and Twitter, and to be notified when the presentation is available. There are lots of resources available to make sure you practice good biosecurity every time, every day. Here are the publications where you can find more information about the things we've discussed today. You can also find organizations in your state and community that help you keep your birds, your farm, and your bird-loving family safe and healthy. And before we go, we'd like to thank USDA APHIS and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention for hosting this webinar. On behalf of my co-hosts, Dr. Joanna Quinn and Dr. Denise Hurd of USDA APHIS, and Dr. Megan Nichols from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and me, Andy Schneider, the Chicken Whisperer. Thank you for joining us, and let's keep our poultry healthy together.